Welcome to the Zeitgeist Lab pod
Wait,
collection.
hold on. I thought I was starting this because it's my season.
This isn't a season episode.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot. I thought we were doing a lab experiment for a second.
For what?
I don't know.
All right, welcome to the Zeitgeist Lab collection podcast. This is volume 3 of the United States Canada Free Exchange of Podcast Content. I am joined as always by my co-host Brian, and as sometimes by our creative consultant Jordan Lane. Guys, how's it going tonight?
Good. I'm sorry for interrupting. I forgot what we have so many irons in the fire at the moment. I forgot what we were doing for a split second.
I really wish I could forgive you, but I don't see that happening at this time.
That makes sense.
I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little bit on the sleepy side. I haven't really done much today, I feel like, but I at least got a workout in and I showered, so that's, better than some days.
That's something.
Yeah.
What is it, leg day? Is it arms day? What kind of workout are we doing?
Today was, leg raises, so kind of a core workout, and then I also did some barbell squats, some overhead presses, and dumbbell deadlifts and dumbbell squats, I have to say.
It's intense.
Nice. Well, that explains why you're sleepy.
Indeed. So tonight I'm going to take you through one of my favorite albums by one of my favorite bands. I figured that we had a different band kind of scheduled initially for this episode, but given that this season was new metal, I thought I'd kind of rope it slightly more into this month's theme, or this season's theme, excuse me. So we're going to talk today about the band Chore from Dunnville, Ontario, and their album The Coastaline Fire, which came out on Sonic Onion Records, I want to say 2001 or 2, somewhere around there, 2002. And so this was a band that really I got into during kind of like a very formative time for me getting into music. I think I was around 15, 16. So this was, me going to shows and really kind of hearing something kind of different that I hadn't before, listening to the kinds of music that I had at the time. So I would say that this only kind of loosely ropes into new metal stuff. As I said to you guys before, it's kind of more elements of Deftones and Tool than like Korn or Limp Bizkit, but I think there is some kind of tie-in, and especially through bands that kind of bridge the worlds of like alternative and that kind of new metal a little bit, like say Helmet. You can hear some kind of riffs like that in
I definitely heard some Helmet in there.
Yeah, and especially with the older albums, you can really hear. I feel like the Tool and the Helmet influences kind of a lot more, as well as like Shudder to Think, Jawbox. Who? Sorry,
Far.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah,
a lot of Far in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Failure, lots of stuff. Really, really cool band. So, well, at least that's my opinion. So I've talked for a little bit here. I'm curious to hear what you guys thought about this record.
Yeah. So my immediate first thought was like, this band is like radiating like eternal opening act energy to me. Like I couldn't help but feel like I was listening to a band that was like opening for, I don't know, maybe the Deftones. I couldn't think of like a headlining band that I would see them with, but I definitely felt like I was waiting for a better band to come on.
So is that a kind of polite way of saying you weren't feeling this?
No, I thought it was definitely okay. I just felt like I was like kind of like I said, like waiting for like the headliners to come on, but
right.
It was just kind of I was just kind of politely sitting through it, but and then like you said, it's very loosely tied into new metal. I was kind of expecting it to be more like heavy into the new metal side of things. I looked them up on Wikipedia, and it described them as like post-hardcore and kind of like alternative rock, and I was like, that seemed a little more accurate, but but yeah, it was definitely okay. Like I heard like some slight elements of 90s emo in there too, like the softer
definitely.
side of things. So that kind of grabbed my attention a little bit, but overall, yeah, I didn't hate it.
So I'm curious if you had gone in and I hadn't kind of primed the pump by claiming this had new metal status, do you think that you would have felt differently about it?
Maybe. I can't say for sure, but yeah, I don't know. Probably not. Yeah, I wasn't like offended that it wasn't like new metal or anything. Like it was just like I definitely got what they were going for. So yeah, I didn't feel like totally fooled.
Sorry, what were they going? What were they going for?
Kind of like Jordan said, like a more uh, like uh, like a helmet type of sound. I don't know what genre you'd like fully attach it to, but like that sort of not necessarily angular, but I don't know. I'm kind of bad at describing.
No, I totally know what you mean. There's like I think that post hardcore is like it's a shitty label because that refers to so many different
Metal,
bands
yeah.
that sound so wildly disparate from one another that it's effectively meaningless. And
Yeah.
alternative rock is the same way, but at the same time, I feel like alternative rock is kind of the most appropriate label for this stuff. There's a bit of kind of shoegaze elements. There's a bit of those kind of emo and post-hardcore, like late 80s, early 90s elements. There's a bit of that, what you'd kind of call like sneaker metal or like short hair metal, kind of thing.
I don't know what sneaker metal is, no. Or
But that's
short hair metal.
at least locally. That was what there was this one band called Pasado, and I remember a few other bands kind of started referring to bands like Helmet and stuff as sneaker metal. Like they're metal dudes, but they're not dressing like what you would expect from a metal guy. Like there's no studs in sight. It's just like some guys wearing Carhartts and a fucking baseball cap or whatever.
Okay, yeah, I like that sneaker metal. Not to spoil well, maybe no, it's already out now, but that reminds me of Riley from Flashback referring to Slipknot as dead animal new metal. Which I just love when people just kind of make up genres like that on the spot.
Right.
They're so nonsensical, yeah.
But yeah, like they don't necessarily mean. Well, it's kind of like the egg and chain thing, right? Like they don't necessarily mean anything, but there's a signifier that you can say. Like you can define a category based on that easily. But yeah, and another band that I think that this band really evokes for me is Hum, who I'm not sure your degree of familiarity, but yeah.
Yeah, Hum. That just kind of it's like the more I think about it, sneaker metal it makes a lot of sense because I definitely pictured just like balding dudes in their like mid-30s with like plain t-shirts and jeans, just kind of quietly playing their rock tunes. Yeah, there's like it's like imageless basically, kind of faceless sort of.
Right. So Alex, how did you feel about this one?
I mean, I felt that it was okay in the same way that everything that we've talked about so far that's new metal or new metal adjacent is okay. It was there. I thought it was decent. There were lots of things in there to like if you are into a certain type of music. That's not me, but like I really liked Electrojet and I really liked the closer Virginia Creeper. I thought those were really good songs, but there was nothing on here that like offended me or was like, oh, what the fuck why am I even wasting my time with this? But also I wasn't like, oh yeah, this is so great. But that coming from me and it being this type of music, that's not a statement on really anything other than it was listenable.
Right. Yeah, this is definitely like kind of, I would say, the most listenable and kind of like, I guess, radio friendly of their catalog. Mm-hmm. And it took me a while to come around to it. I didn't think it was as good as their previous album at first. Not Superville. What was it called? Take My Mask and Breathe. But eventually I came around to kind of thinking that this is their best album because kind of as I got older, I became less resistant to the idea of bands that I liked having hooks or trying to write like a quote unquote catchy song. Mm-hmm. Like, when I was a teenager or whatever, like I said, when I first got into this band, I was hearing stuff like Dillinger Escape Plan for the first time and during their like really wild early stuff. And so it was just like, what the fuck does anyone need a hook for when you can write like 26 songs in the space of one song? But as I got older, I really kind of came around to the idea that there is like a craft to writing a good song, and that I ultimately ended up kind of finding myself singing these songs and listening to this album more than the other stuff. So,
I do want to say that the album, their first album name appears to have been Another Plebeian. Yeah, which I think is a great name for an album because I don't know when I coined this term or if I coined it, but it's a term that I always use as like a non sequitur. I will just use the term plebeian rhapsody And I don't know what it means. I've never it's just something I will say or think in my head. It's it's almost like a tick or something.
Right. No, I've never heard that
one. Song title, Plebeian Rhapsody.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think you coined that. I think you can safely slap the TM on the tail end.
Excellent.
I think we should make Alex listen to Dillinger Escape Plan.
Have you never heard Dillinger Escape Plan?
I've never heard any of the bands you guys have mentioned so far tonight, other than I think I heard I heard the word Deftones, and I heard Tool. I've heard those two bands. I don't know what Helmet is. I don't know what anything else you guys have talked about.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, Hum and Helmet were both, and Jawbox, I think, too, were all at different points talked about by Beavis and Butthead on Beavis and Butthead.
Never seen Beavis and Butthead.
Watch the music video. Oh my fucking God!
Sorry.
Is this just a generational thing? How old are you again? I forget.
35. Just turned 35.
Okay, you're not that much younger than me. So
no, yeah. I mean, I remember Beavis and Butthead. We had MTV. I wasn't really allowed to watch MTV, but there was definitely a time when my parents stopped caring, and I could have. And I don't like Beavis and Butthead. I don't like King of the Hill. I guess Mike Judge is just not for me. So,
well, truthfully, I don't. Go ahead.
Stars by Hum, Alex. That's probably the second best song of the '90s.
It's a really, really great song. I think, again, that the album after that, Downward is Heavenward, is their kind of quote-unquote masterpiece. And then they did a surprise album 2 years ago that was quite good.
I never heard the follow-up to the one with Stars.
It's so fucking good.
The comeback record was really good.
Yeah, I would definitely say to check out Downward is Heavenward if you haven't. That's to you and to all the listeners, so yeah. But yeah, I don't know. So if neither of you guys, if this really kind of stood out to you, I'm not really sure where to take it from here. I could get into my own history with this band, or we could unpack the finer points of what you did or didn't like about them. But ultimately, if it wasn't that resonant for either of you, it seems self-indulgent on my part to sit here and blather on about it.
I mean, we're nothing if not a self-indulgent podcast, so you shouldn't feel bad about it. One thing I will say is that as I was right as we started this call, I went to pull it up on Wikipedia or look for it online. It seems like there's some confusion on some sites as to whether the album is called the Coastline Fire or the Coastaline Fire.
Right. Yeah, it's Coastaline, all one word.
Coastaline, okay.
Yeah.
Well, right. But on Amazon it's listed as the Coastline. It's still all one word, but they don't have that A in there.
Right, yeah.
So I don't know what that means. I'm just saying things because I have nothing else to say. I'm just throwing random facts out there.
What was that?
SEO on this album is awful, is basically what I'm saying.
No. The SEO on calling your album Coastaline Fire is actually extremely good because you then have a unique hit. It's just that you need people to actually be able to play along with it. That's the difficulty with having, a band name that has a $ in it or something like that. Like Angel Dust.
Yeah, exactly. Did they come from a certain scene in Canada that you know of, or?
Well, so that's actually a good kind of segue into me getting into this band. So back in the days before the internet was really all that powerful or that well informed, it didn't have that much information on it at the time, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. A big part of how I got into music, and you hear this from a lot of slightly older people too, is checking out stuff in thanks lists in records, checking out the labels themselves. So, if you hear Green Day and you're like, oh, okay, what's Lookout Records? And then you dig into the back catalog of Lookout Records, and some of those bands suck and some of those bands are really good. But yeah, that was for me how I got into this band, and how I got into a lot of different kinds of music in the first place was through a label out of Hamilton, Ontario called Sonic Unyon Records, UNYON. I feel like Josiah or Sam has brought them up on 155 before in some capacity. But yeah, so they put out the early records by a band called Treble Charger, who Greg Norrie fronted, who would then go on to produce Sum 41 and be kind of like Canada's pop punk mastermind.
Wow.
But so they did this CD EP in 1996 called Self-Titled that had a CD-ROM component that was called Screenzine. So it was basically like a magazine containing interviews and audio clips and all this kind of stuff with all of their different friends bands from this local Southern Ontario scene. And the like for the time, the production values that went into this thing were insane. Like it was a full-on multimedia experience with like each band had its own kind of unique layout. Everything was like animated and moving and all this stuff, and it was just like such a cool thing and such a great amount of effort coming from like a DIY scene. And so I started to kind of check out other bands from that label. And and that was how I heard like kind of newer metal bands for the first time, because they put out a couple of kind of like, I guess what you'd call noise rock or maybe sneaker metal bands. They put out a really, really great shoegaze band from Hamilton called Science-Spheric. They put out a whole bunch of different, they were mainly kind of like an indie rock label, but then they also put out Chore. And so I kind of checked this out just because it was out on a label that I liked. And it was a sort of interesting medium point between metal, which I was hearing through bands on that label like Kittens and Shallow North Dakota, and then a kind of more like songwriting or I guess slightly hook oriented approach, not just total heavy crushingness all the time. So like I said, that was like probably 15, 16 around there. And then I went and saw this band a few times. They played a bunch of all well, not a bunch, but every time they would come through, they would play like an all ages show in the early evening and then do a bar show that night. So I ended up seeing them a few times in Calgary, and they were always very nice. They indulged me in doing an interview for my like 16-year-old like paper cutout fanzine music zine thing that I did at the time. Awesome. Mm-hmm. So that was very, very cool of them. And since the band broke up, they've gone on to do a whole bunch of other bands. There's a band called Dawn Vale that's very, very good. That's the two kind of principal songwriters. Chris,
what's the vibe on that one?
Pretty similar, but even less metal. Like the heaviness is very, very toned down. And it's mostly, I feel like the second songwriter, Mitch, who writes most of the songs for that band. But yeah, they're a very, very cool band. And I feel like they may have somebody from Treble Charger, who I mentioned before, in that band too. And then, Chris, the singer, does acoustic material now. David, the drummer, for a while was doing a show on the Cartoon Network here in Canada about three brothers who ran a butchery who also played in like a meat-themed heavy metal band called the Sons of Butcher. So it was kind of like the Canadian version of Metalocalypse, maybe. Wow. I thought that show was pretty funny, but it didn't last very long, unfortunately. And and I don't know. That's kind of like all the Chore info dump that I've got on deck here for you off the top of my head. So
I have a question for you. This is Brian, you go first because mine is not about the band or anything. So if you have something more on topic, please.
Okay. Yeah. I was just gonna ask, did they ever make it to the States at all, like touring wise or anything like that? I know, I think I saw on their Wikipedia that they got played on 120 Minutes here in MTV.
Yeah. The video for, I feel like the song from this album, General Warning, I think was the single, it got a little bit of kind of play in the States. But honestly, I laughed very, very hard at your kind of perpetual opening act energy joke because it's not wrong. Like, yeah. I love this band, but I don't feel like they ever kind of got the recognition that they deserved. I feel like I was always one of maybe like 10 people that kind of like made sure to show up every time they played Calgary. And that wasn't to say that there was only 10 people at the show, but there was like, so somebody joked a while ago on Twitter about like North of America doing a reunion show, and exactly the same group of 20, 38-year-old men you're going to see in every city. And as one of those men that was at that show, it very much had the same kind of feeling of like, there is a small but extremely devoted fan base to this band, and I'm one of them who's very, very fervent, but there's just not that many of us. So
yeah. I feel like it's really hard for a lot of bands to break into America that are from Canada. There's a long history of that. Like even bands that I like that in high school, like Alexis on Fire and Monine, who rarely toured the US as far as I know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, the thing is about like touring the US is that you have to have all your paperwork in order like months in advance. And of course, that's very difficult for DIY people. But then touring Canada sucks too, because it's like usually 3+ hours, like minimum between cities. And then when you're doing like, say Thunder Bay to Ottawa or something, there's really not anywhere in between once you get past a certain size as a band. So then that's like a 12-hour or something straight drive, and so it becomes it's still not great to not go through the States. Like economically, if the paperwork and the feasibility of touring to the States was easier, I feel like it would be way more economically viable for Canadian bands. Just like how with my business, like, you know, I have my shipping based out of the States just because there are so many more people buying stuff in the States that I probably lose out on some Canadian sales that way. But there is overall so much more volume coming from the States because there's just so many more people, so much more densely populated.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Now, earlier you had talked about getting the chance to interview these guys for a fanzine you had, and you mentioned specifically about how they were very nice to indulge you. So I wanted to kind of circle back to something that we talked about a long time ago when you were on our Trailer Park Boys episode, which was this idea, like the idea of the niceness or politeness of Canadians. And I don't listen to our podcast ever, unlike Brian, so I don't remember exactly what was said anymore, but it was something to the effect of like, Canadians are nice to your face, but then they'll make fun of you once you're out of the room. And that's kind of the difference between the Canadian politeness and any sort of perceived American politeness.
Right.
Now, at the time, I kind of understood that to be like, that's Canadians interacting with foreigners, specifically probably Americans. When a Canadian knows they're interacting with another Canadian, is there still like this fake politeness, or is there a different like vibe when like two groups or two Canadians are interacting, or is it still just like, we're gonna be polite no matter what, and as soon as I get out of this room, I'm gonna like make a lot of fun of you?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It's the same across the board. We are a passive aggressive people.
So even to each other. So it's not like
absolutely.
It's not an outsider's thing. It's just that
it is not a shibboleth.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look that up, but I'll take your word for it.
Do you want the story about what a shibboleth is?
Absolutely.
So shibboleth is a thing from the Bible, and basically what it was so you know how like people from a certain part of Spain, they don't say their S's, they say it more as like a TH sound. Mm-hmm. So basically it was a word that effectively exploited the way that their enemies pronounce certain words to test basically whether someone was like a spy or not, or whether they were really a member of that nation. Okay. And so you would just like literally, if you suspected someone was a spy, you'd say shibboleth. And if they were like fibboleth, you'd be like, oh, well, obviously this guy isn't one of us.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, so I don't know what the actual like pronunciation difference was, but that's an analogous kind of example.
Gotcha. All right. I didn't know we had a biblical scholar on deck as well. Jeez, you're just like a man.
I know a little bit about a lot of things.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I don't know. We're only at a half hour so far, but I don't know really kind of where else to take this. If, like I said, if there really kind of wasn't that much interest in it.
Yeah, I don't know. It was like I appreciate like the diverse influences that were going on. Like the night, like I heard a lot of hum in there, and a lot of like some slight '90s emo, like Texas is the Reason kind of style.
Yeah,
emo.
Totally.
But I think that that doesn't predate Texas is the Reason. This is a couple of years after that album, I think. But yeah, and like the sneaker metal, which I'm just gonna keep thinking about like for the rest of the day, just how awesome that term is.
I would be so stoked if that's like a highly specific, like just Calgary thing that then catches wider. I would love that, but I wonder if that's something that Marsden is familiar with.
Yeah, I'm gonna those like bands with sneaker metal, like that's how. Are you familiar with the term Twinkle Daddies in regards to emo?
I assumed that's like yeah, okay.
What is going on?
It just, like those emo bands that have the very kind of, well, American football's kind of, I feel like the textbook example,
exactly,
or Joan of Arc maybe,
of
like
the
really kind of twinkly
guitars, yeah. But some guy, he like went on Last FM and like changed all the bios of those like kind of twinkly emo bands to like such and such. Captain Jazz are Twinkle Daddies from Chicago, Illinois, and then did that for like a bunch of modern bands too. And then he was like the guy who started it as at a show, and he was behind a couple of people in line who were like, "Yeah, I heard they call this stuff Twinkle Daddies," and he's like, "I fucking did that." I forgot. Shout out to I think Greg Horrible. He used to play in The World's a Beautiful Place and blah, 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 blah. That's where I heard that from.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like quite a bit of the twinkle emo. That's kind of, I feel like late 90s, early 2000s is where I start to kind of lose interest in emo to some degree. Again, when it starts becoming too catchy and too hook oriented, like Saves the Day, all this kind of stuff is really, I start to drop out. But like, yeah, Texas is the Reason, Promise Ring, the first American football record, Joan of Arc, definitely touch points for me. So.
For sure, yeah. I liked when I liked the poppier stuff. That was like how I got into emo. Like, Nothing Feels Good by the Promise Ring is still like
that's a great album,
emo album, of all time. And they're from Wisconsin, so I have to be biased.
I tried listening to that because you've mentioned this album before, Brian. I tried listening to it. I just do not understand it. I think it is just like utter dog shit. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Really?
I tried because you were like,
wow.
I think on our top 10 albums one, you were like, that was really close to making it. But I just, I had the other ones that I liked more, so I went back and I've tried it like 2 or 3 times since then. I was like, I just don't get it. Something there's not clicking for me.
That one took me a while to come around to. I'll be totally fair to you, Alex.
Albums,
yeah, and it's for that reason, and especially because for all of that band's merits, I don't think that Davey Von Bolen is a strong lyricist. And
really?
when it gets into those kind of more poppy albums, it just starts to feel like fucking nursery rhyme shit. And so it really turned me off at first on the back of like the White Album and the Horse Latitudes. Then when that one came out, I was like, really, fellas? Okay, but I eventually came around to like agreeing with you that it is probably their best album.
But I'm full into pop. Like pop sound is what I'm looking for. Like I'm not into like anything kind of too far off the mainstream. So that's why I'm like, I just think it sucks. I don't think it sounds like poppy good at all. It's like what the hell is this?
I thought that I think it's their best album because it's like the perfect balance of like their poppy material and their sort of meandering sort of like not twinkly, but like they're kind of like the Horse Latitudes kind of era or 30 Degrees Everywhere era. That sort of wandering kind of sound. I don't know. I think it's a perfect balance of those. And then they kind of doubled down on the pop stuff with Very Emergency. And then Woodwater, which I think we talked about on Twitter recently.
Yeah.
Is kind of more left field, kind of, I don't want to say folky, but it's really kind of like sort of more like, I used to call it like morning coffee music. It's like really like it's kind of NPR, kind of not alt country, but it's kind of alt country adjacent, sort of like NPR core kind of thing. It's very mature for them. And then it sounds similar to their later band Maritime, I guess. It's kind of hints in that direction. But yeah. I saw the Promise Ring play for free at like a reunion show in 2012 on UW-Madison's campus, and I was like double fisting pitchers of beer the whole time and just got fucking wasted and walked all the way home afterwards, and it was like a dream come true just seeing them in that such intimate setting. They played outside on like the terrace. It was fucking perfect.
Nice. That sounds like a great show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was. I guess Chore did a reunion show. I feel like just before COVID hit, and I didn't find out until after. You know what? I probably would have flown out for that. Honestly, that would have been a big deal for me. But unfortunately, I just didn't know about it. So,
damn.
Yep.
I'm so surprised Alex didn't like Nothing Feels Good. That's like a solid pop album, kind of like.
No, that's incorrect.
I'm slightly offended here. That's a good Wisconsin band.
Maybe it is a good Wisconsin band.
What are you saying about the great state of Wisconsin, Alex?
Yeah.
Not that take my comment and the context in which I've laid it as you will.
Limbeck just played here. They're tied to Wisconsin a little bit. I think one of them lives in Milwaukee. They just played with Direct Hit and 2 really good local bands. But
who did you say? Limbeck?
Limbeck, yeah, they're kind of.
I don't know them.
It's like pop punk, but meets alt country. Alex likes them supposedly. So.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, it's been a long time since I've listened to them. I just know that at least one of their members was in the Benjamins, which was a drive-through band. So
Milwaukee
I like that they're connected to drive-through.
And as we know, it's all about the Benjamins. So
it is all about the Benjamins.
Yeah, but Limbeck is like they have this really weird pop punk meets alt country sound that's like surprisingly really good. Like they have 4 really solid albums that don't really deviate from that kind of mixing of sounds. So, can
I ask you something here, Jordan?
Sure.
And like Brian, you and I have talked about this privately, maybe on like somewhere or something. So I hope you know that I'm not like trying to pick on you, but we've often talked about why you seem to like die on the hill of like bands from Wisconsin or Madison or whatever. And like I could give a shit about like bands from Utah, like fuck The Used, fuck Imagine Dragons. Like I don't care about those sorts of things. So I'm just wondering, Jordan, do you have any sort of like pride about Calgary and art it produces or bands?
Probably the most famous band from our local scene here is Chicks Dig It, and they were literally the first band that I saw when I went to a punk show when I was like 13 or 14. And honestly, I don't care for it. They're very, very good at what they do, but I just don't fucking give a shit about pop punk. And I wish them all the best, but I think I've seen them probably 4 times in the course of like 25 years of them playing and me going to shows. Like I probably could have seen them upwards of 100 times if I wanted to, but I just don't care about it. So yeah, like there's nobody around here that I actively hate. And I certainly, I don't get in like beefs with any of the local rappers the way Josiah does. Yeah, I don't, there's a lot of bands that I dislike, and including a lot of bands that my friends just like, you're a great guy, but I probably won't be at your show tonight. Sorry, man. Like,
right, yeah.
Well, there's still bands around here that I despise, like the hardcore band Expire, who are extremely fucking canceled, who I never liked to begin with. So there are definitely some bands from here I don't like, but it's just a point of pride. Like I don't know where this comes from, but having lived in for like most of my life, it's just become important. Like I'm proud like of all of Wisconsin sports teams, and like
and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just trying to figure out, is that the exception or the rule? Because I kind of resent everything in Utah, specifically just because like I'm here. Like sports teams, like fuck the Utah Jazz. Like I hate the Utah Jazz. I've been here since I was 5, so it's been 30 years now. Yeah,
it's just because like the Midwest has like, and especially a place like Wisconsin has like a reputation for being just like a flyover state that people don't really care about. So it's like any sort of recognition that Wisconsin gets, I'm going to be into, I guess, to a degree. More or less,
I can totally see that, because I feel like with your kind of geographical loyalty, let's call it, I feel like there's like a big underdog element to it.
Oh yeah,
and that's like, and I think that's part of the point that you just raised, Brian. How attached you are to where you're from. Like Alex, I've been in Calgary since I was 5, but like, there's a lot of great things here, but there's also a lot of shitty people, and it's a really shitty kind of like corrupt city, and there's a lot to dislike about it too. So I don't feel any particular kind of like Calgary civic pride, like when somebody brings up the Olympics or something. But yeah, like there's not very many specific people that I wish ill. So
what keeps you in Calgary then?
Wisconsin's a horrible place. Like I mean, like it's just been just consistently very shitty on a political level. Like all the surrounding states, even I think Iowa has like legalized weed at some level, but we're still completely just backwards on that, and probably will be for a while. But like, not that that's the only issue that matters, but like, I don't know. Even like, I was even stoked for Bon Iver when that dude's band got big, and you couldn't catch me dead listening to anything that sounds remotely like Bon Iver. Like Fleet Foxes, get the fuck out of here, never. But I really like Bon Iver, and I think a lot of it has to do with him being from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, where I went to college for a semester. And I don't know.
Perhaps it's also because he has a song called Calgary. So
that's true, yeah. And he has a song called Towers, which is named after the dorms that I stayed in briefly.
Oh, cool.
At Eau Claire.
Yeah. Alex, to answer your question about why I'm still in Calgary, I would say largely inertia.
Okay, well, fair enough.
Making a city change is a big deal, and to do that, I would feel like I would have to have a job offer, a well-paying one in another city. But while I'm still kind of working for myself and all this stuff, trying to do that while also moving to like Vancouver or Toronto or whatever, I feel like would be kind of a lot to bite off. So
that's true. Yeah, and then speaking of like civic pride with Wisconsin, this directly goes against that. Of everything I've been saying, but I've been getting nonstop notifications on this TikTok that I commented on a couple days ago that ranks all the states in the Midwest, and the person ranked Minnesota at number 1 and Wisconsin at number 2, and I commented saying, yeah, I'm in Wisconsin, and even I think Minnesota is the better state. And I've just been getting nonstop note. Like it's like 600 likes or something like that.
Yeah,
And like
yeah.
all these people in Wisconsin saying like you're fucking wrong, blah 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 blah. That's not true. But I'm like, no, it's true. I think like you can smoke weed there legally, and it's people are friendlier. Like Minnesota Nice is a very real concept.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
But Minnesota Nice is like Canadian nice.
It's Canadian nice. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. People say even people in Wisconsin are like, I think Mark Maron said people in Wisconsin are frighteningly polite.
Mark Maron, my God, we're gonna talk about Mark Maron now. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we're kind of going all over the place. But yeah, he referred to people in Madison, I think, specifically as frighteningly polite. So,
what's up, Zeitgeisters, Geistheads, Geistoramas, Zeitgeist Labbers, Lab Heads, Lab Dogs? Alex and the Toozler here.
Wow. I think I got diarrhea.
There you go.
I like this sort of free-form format we got going on for this episode.
Yeah, I don't really know. I'm happy to stay on and excuse me. I'm happy to stay on and chit chat about whatever. But yeah, where the conversation goes next is anyone's guess.
But yeah, I think Minnesota is better though than Wisconsin, honestly.
Have you been to the States before, Jordan?
Yes, I've not been to Minnesota before. I've not been to Wisconsin. I've been to Idaho, Washington State, Illinois briefly, Michigan a number of times. I feel like that's maybe it.
Why would you go to Idaho?
Oh, California I've been to, because you drive through it on the way to Portland. Oh, so I guess I've been to Oregon as well, or Seattle.
Sense.
So yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Plus, actually, Coeur d'Alene, we used to camp when I was a kid. We used to go down there, that area, a fair bit. Spokane. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
I would definitely never live in Illinois. That's for sure. Okay, so I don't think I've ever explained this on pod. I don't even think I've explained it off mic, but I think Chicago and its surrounding suburbs should be its own state. Call it Chicagoland, because that's what they already refer to that area as,
right.
Chicagoland. And then the rest of Illinois could be its own state, because fuck Illinois. But we'll keep Chicago.
So is it like Austin in Texas? Is it kind of the one like liberal enclave or whatever?
Yeah, but not just because of that, because just like Illinois is just full of just wretched people. Just like I used to work at a liquor store. I used to work at a bunch of liquor stores, but the one that I worked in my town I grew up in, like all the most obnoxious people would interact with me, and like they'd use like $100 bill to pay for like a 6-pack, or they'd just be just.
Oh, but they bump a cart into you.
Yeah. Maybe that lady was from Illinois. We'll talk. Yeah, you'll hear about that in a couple of weeks, Jordan. But yeah. And I would always look outside to like see the license plate of whoever was just being really obnoxious with me. They would 10 times out of 10 be from Illinois.
Wow.
Especially during the summer, like just they come to Wisconsin and just like use all of our really nice quiet lakes just to go like jet skiing and just be really obnoxious. And I don't know, we call them fibs, fucking Illinois bastards here. So yeah, but Chicago's great. Chicago's a great city. I mean, the suburbs are presumably fine, but that's why it should be its own state, I think, because the rest of Illinois can fuck off.
Now, why can't you I guess why can't you hate part of a state and still be like, yeah, that is like why do you have to be like, we need a separate state for this one area that I like, but I don't even live in it or the state that I want to see secede from it?
I don't know. It's just an idea.
It's just an idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you could say that about. Is there any state? Okay, let's take your bias for Wisconsin out of it. Is there any state where you like the entire state? Because I feel like you could say that about an area in any state. Like, oh yeah, Salt Lake should be its own state. Oh yeah, Austin. Oh yeah, I don't know, San Diego or whatever. Like,
no, I just said I preferred Minnesota to Wisconsin. So yeah, like I've never had any problems with Minnesota. I have family there. I had a lot of good times in Minnesota. I did a zombie themed pub crawl when I went to Eau Claire in Minneapolis over like a weekend. That was pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been to Montana too. I forgot about that. That's the one right across the border.
Montana could fuck off. Like, what even happens in Montana?
I love Montana.
Montana's
it's
nice, yeah.
fucking beautiful, man.
I've heard it's nice.
If you're at all an outdoors person, it's a great spot.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm an indoor cat.
Nice.
All right. Well, do we have anything else we need to go over? I don't know that we've talked much about Canada at all, but we've talked.
You don't talk about the States, yeah.
No, that's okay.
Well, it is the United States-Canada free exchange of podcast content.
It's a free exchange, not a free and equal exchange.
Right. And it was podcast content.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we checked all the boxes. I think we fulfilled the promise of the name.
That's true. That's a good point, yeah. We did our job here.
Absolutely.
We clocked in, we clocked out.
All right. Well, Jordan, as always, thank you for joining us. Brian, thank you for being here as always as well. It's always a pleasure when you're here, fully clothed with no Taco Bell. And yeah, we will see you guys next month. Thanks everyone for listening.
Peace.